The audience expected tension. They did not expect a quiet battle of smiles, pauses, and carefully sharpened comments. One host, one guest, one London studio, and a clash that refused to stay polite for long. Kevin O'Sullivan had dissected politicians, actors, and wealthy business owners on live television for years. But tonight, sitting across from Meghan Markle beneath the bright studio lights, even he didn't know how personal this would soon feel. The studio lights washed the set in deep blues and golds that reflected across the glass panels behind the desk. The London skyline glowed across the massive lead wall like a silent witness, watching something it couldn't interrupt. The audience clapped as Kevin O'Sullivan rearranged the papers in front of him. His dark blazer neat, his striped shirt slightly open at the collar, giving him a relaxed but alert appearance. Then she entered. Meghan Markle walked in with smooth confidence, her dark hair pulled into a low, elegant bun, wearing a fitted sleeveless dark green top that contrasted sharply with the cool-toned studio. She smiled for the cameras, but not for anyone in the room. The mug with Kevin's printed face waited on the table between them like a quiet inside joke. Neither acknowledged it. Applause rose again. Meghan sat down, crossing her legs with easy control, chin lifted, eyes already scanning Kevin with polite curiosity so distant it was almost insulting, as if she were examining a piece of furniture instead of a person. Kevin leaned forward a little, fingers open on the desk. "Tonight we have Meghan Markle with us," he said in a balanced tone. "Welcome." "Thank you," Meghan replied brightly. "Happy to be here." Her words were warm. Her tone was not. Kevin showed a faint smile. "You don't visit British studios much these days." Meghan tilted her head. "I go where the conversations matter." The sentence was sweet. The meaning wasn't. A ripple of uneasy laughter passed through the audience. Kevin didn't react. He nodded once. "Let's begin with something simple," he said. "You've spoken often about reclaiming your voice. Do you feel Britain ever truly listened to you?" Meghan's smile tightened into something polished. "I think Britain listened very closely," she said. "Whether it understood is another question." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like a polite way of saying the country failed you." "I prefer to say expectations failed reality," she answered calmly. "On all sides." Her tone was smooth, almost practiced, but beneath it was a faint edge no one could miss. Kevin noticed. So did the audience. Kevin folded his hands together. "Yet you continue shaping your public story largely through British and American media. Doesn't that mean you still care deeply about British opinion?" Meghan let out a soft, amused breath. "Kevin, I care about impact," she said. "Not approval." Her words landed sharper than her smile suggested. Kevin leaned back slightly. "Impact without accountability can start to look like control." A flicker passed through Meghan's eyes. "Only if you assume the public is powerless," she said coolly, "which I certainly don't." Kevin's lips tilted. "Interesting, because some argue your public image is handled with remarkable precision." Meghan raised one eyebrow. "Is that supposed to be a compliment or an accusation?" "Just an observation," Kevin replied. "Then observe this," she said, leaning forward just a little. "Every public figure manages their image. The difference is whether people resent you for doing it well." The audience murmured. A few scattered laughs followed. Kevin tapped his pen on the desk once. "You make it sound as if criticism is always rooted in envy." "Isn't it?" Meghan asked lightly. Kevin's eyes narrowed by a fraction. "Sometimes it comes from consequences." Meghan smiled wider. "That's a very British way of romanticizing judgment." The tension in the room thickened. Not loud, not explosive, but unmistakable. This was no longer a friendly chat. This was measurement. Kevin leaned forward again. "Let's talk about perception," he said. "Many believe you left the UK while still expecting to hold moral authority over it." Meghan's eyes hardened for the first time. "That's a false assumption," she replied. "I left a role. I didn't leave responsibility." "Yet responsibility usually requires presence." "So does toxicity," Meghan said quickly. A sharp breath moved through the audience. Kevin blinked once. Then he smiled, but the smile never reached his eyes. "I see," he said quietly. "So Britain was toxic." Meghan shrugged slightly. "Certain structures were." "You'd know something about that," wouldn't you?" The jab was soft but unmistakable. Kevin didn't respond right away. He let silence fill the space, long enough for every viewer to feel it. "Well," he said slowly, "we've set the tone rather quickly." Meghan lifted her mug, took a slow sip, then set it down carefully. "I prefer efficiency," she said. "Saves time." Kevin nodded once. "Then let's not waste any." The camera zoomed in on both faces. Two smiles. No warmth. And as the audience leaned forward, one thing was clear. This stopped being an interview. It had become a test of who would lose control first. The polite expressions remained. But behind the studio lights, something had already shifted. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a contest of endurance. Kevin O'Sullivan had waited long enough. And Meghan Markle had made one mistake. She assumed he would stay polite. The camera widened as the last bit of applause faded into an uncomfortable quiet. Kevin glanced down at his notes again but didn't pick them up. He left them on the desk, untouched, as if he no longer needed them. Meghan sat calmly in her chair, shoulders back, one hand around the mug. She looked relaxed, maybe too relaxed. Kevin continued, his tone steady but colder. "You often talk about reclaiming your narrative," he said. "But critics argue your story shifts depending on the audience. One version for Americans, another for Britons. Which is the real one?" Meghan smiled faintly. "The one people choose to hear." Kevin's jaw tightened slightly. "Sounds like a convenient way to avoid inconsistency." "Sounds like reality," she replied. "Media filters everything, even your questions." The audience reacted with a few soft, uncertain laughs. Kevin nodded slowly. "Let's test that," he said. "You've described your time in the UK as emotionally harmful, yet your global fame comes mostly from that period. Do you resent the place that gave you the platform you use today?" Meghan's eyes flickered to a tiny reaction, almost invisible. "Gave?" she repeated. "That's generous." Kevin leaned back. "You disagree?" "I earned every inch of it," she said calmly. "The platform existed long before me. I simply used it better than most." A ripple moved through the audience. Kevin looked straight at her now. "So the institution mattered, but not the people within it." Meghan tilted her head. "Institutions don't suffer, people do." "That wasn't my question," Kevin replied. "And it wasn't a helpful framing," she snapped. The pressure in the studio rose like heat. Cameras pushed in closer. No one was going to miss a moment. Kevin tapped the desk twice. "You talk a lot about truth," he said. "Yet several parts of your story have been publicly disputed. Journalists, biographers, even former supporters. Are they all wrong?" Meghan's smile stayed, but it turned stiffer. "Kevin," she said softly, "disagreement isn't deception. Neither is verification," he said. The audience murmured. Meghan leaned forward, posture changing from relaxed to engaged, maybe defensive. "Verification by who?" she asked. "Tabloids that built fortunes on twisting stories." Kevin's voice sharpened slightly. "By records, timelines, witnesses." Meghan gave a light shrug. "Truth doesn't need a crowd," she said. "Just conviction." Kevin stared at her longer than necessary. "That's a dangerous philosophy." "Only for those who depend on being believed," she said. The studio fell silent. Kevin inhaled. "Let's talk about finances," he said. "Since perception and conviction seem important to you." Meghan's eyes flickered again, this time noticeably. "You've built a business empire on personal storytelling," Kevin continued. "Deals, documentaries, speeches. Would you admit that your private life has become your product?" Meghan pressed her lips together before replying. "I'd call it ownership," she said. "I decide how my story is told." "And the price?" Kevin asked. "My boundaries aren't items for sale," she said. Kevin didn't stop. "Everything around them appears to be." Meghan leaned forward for the first time intentionally, arms resting lightly on her knees. "You're confusing access with ownership," she said. "A common mistake among commentators." Kevin didn't look away. "Commentators don't usually make eight-figure contracts based on vulnerability." The audience reacted instantly, gasping and whispering. Meghan's smile vanished for a moment before returning. "You sound resentful," she said lightly. Is that personal or professional? Kevin's eyes hardened. It's journalism. Then check your bias, she replied. It's showing. Kevin straightened. Bias doesn't come from questions, he said. It comes from dodging answers. Meghan lifted her chin. I've answered everything. You've avoided everything, he corrected. The room froze. Even the crew went still. For the first time, Meghan's confidence cracked faintly. She picked up her mug and sipped, but her hand trembled just enough to be seen. Kevin noticed. Let's see how long this composure holds, he said softly. The polite phase was over. What came next wouldn't be controlled. The silence in the studio felt heavy, almost physical. Kevin had stopped circling. Meghan had stopped pretending. And viewers across the country sensed something was about to snap. The camera returned from the bumper to a room that felt different. Same lights, same set, different energy. The audience sat upright, less entertained, more anxious. Kevin didn't look at his notes anymore, only at Meghan. You speak about truth, trauma, control, and narrative, he said. But one pattern keeps following you. Meghan crossed her arms slowly. Patterns are stories created by people who need simple explanations, or noticed by people who recognize repetition. Kevin countered. A low murmur moved across the crowd. Kevin continued quietly, forcing people to lean in. Every conflict you describe ends the same way. You're the victim. The institution is the villain. The critics are cruel. The press is corrupt. At what point does responsibility enter your story? Meghan let out a soft, dismissive laugh. That's a loaded question, she said. You're forcing me into a narrative you've already decided. Kevin nodded. Yes, based on years of public record. Meghan's jaw tightened. You pretend you're neutral, she said. You've never been neutral about me. I'm neutral about power, Kevin replied. And you now have plenty of it. She leaned forward, less gracefully now. You confuse visibility with power, she said. A typical mistake from men who think microphones are weapons. The audience reacted loudly. Gasps, scattered claps, whispers. Kevin's expression sharpened. You talk about breaking stereotypes, he said. Yet you use them when convenient. Meghan smiled coldly. I use reality, she replied. You just don't like how it reflects on you. Kevin held back his temper. Let's discuss public trust, he said. Because it's slipping. Polls, global fatigue, skepticism. These are measurable. Meghan waved a hand. Public trust moves with attention, she said. Nothing about it is permanent. Kevin leaned closer. Then why fight to control it? Meghan paused. A tiny pause, but loud enough to shift the entire atmosphere. I don't fight to control anything, she said slowly. I fight to survive a system built to tear people down. Kevin lowered his voice. Yet somehow you always come out with a new platform, a new deal, another spotlight. Meghan's lips lifted slightly. Because I'm good at what I do, she said. And what exactly is that? Kevin asked. She held his gaze. Staying relevant. The audience reacted like a shock wave. Some laughed nervously. Others stiffened. Something cracked. Kevin sat up straight. So relevance is the goal, he said. Not reconciliation, not accountability, just endurance. Meghan shrugged. Endurance is what survives. History also remembers illusions, Kevin replied. The room shifted again. Even the crew exchanged glances. Kevin heard the director whisper urgently into his earpiece. He ignored it. The problem, Kevin said calmly, is that illusions eventually ask for payment. Meghan's smile faded. What do you mean? Every narrative, Kevin replied, eventually collides with contradiction. Silence swallowed the room. Meghan's voice dropped its charm. You're enjoying this, she said. You've waited your entire career to talk to someone like me this way. Kevin didn't deny it. I've waited to talk to someone who refuses to hear criticism, he said. So yes. Meghan laughed coldly. You're obsessed, she said. It's almost flattering. Obsession wants control, Kevin replied. Scrutiny wants truth. Truth is subjective, she said. Power decides what survives. Kevin raised his hand towards the audience. Then let's ask them. A ripple of alarm moved across the room. Meghan's eyes flicked toward the crowd. For the first time, She looked uncertain. Kevin saw it. Everything shifted. Meghan wasn't performing for him Anna Maria. She was performing for the room. And the room was slipping away from her. Kevin spoke quietly. This is the point where control becomes expensive. Meghan's fingers tightened on her chair. Her composed shell began to crack, visible to everyone. The final segment began with forced applause that faded almost instantly. Kevin sat stiffly, papers pushed aside. Meghan sat tall, face arranged but tense. Kevin didn't wait. You've described yourself as resilient, misunderstood, and constantly judged, he said. I have one question. Meghan's smile was small and strained. Ask. Do you believe you've ever done anything wrong in how you've handled your public life? For the first time, she didn't hide the hesitation. I believe I've done what was necessary, she said carefully. That's not what I asked, Kevin pressed. Necessary is not the same as right. Meghan's voice chilled. I don't accept moral judgment from people who profit off my pain. Kevin leaned forward. And yet your pain has become your most profitable currency. The line hit like a strike. Meghan's composure broke. That's disgusting, she snapped. You sit behind that desk and sell cruelty, then accuse me of doing the same. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. Kevin's restraint snapped too. Hypocrisy? He shot back. You package vulnerability as branding, then demand protection from criticism. You claim independence while relying on public fascination. You denounce institutions while benefiting from their legacy. That's not victimhood. That's strategy. The audience erupted. Gasps, shouts, mixed cheers. A producer appeared at the edge of the stage, motioning wildly. Meghan stood suddenly. You don't get to define me, she shouted. You've waited years for this performance. Kevin rose halfway. And you've practiced yours for just as long. Meghan's voice turned sharp with anger. This is what people like you always do. You provoke, insult, then hide behind journalism. Kevin's voice boomed. Journalism questions power. Propaganda protects it. And tonight, you came here expecting to control this room. Meghan pointed at him furiously. You're just a bitter commentator desperate for attention. Kevin laughed once, sharply. And you are proof that attention without accountability becomes arrogance. Lights in the control room flashed. The audience was in chaos. Meghan turned toward the cameras. Let the world see this, she said. Let them see how women are treated when they refuse to be quiet. Kevin slammed his hand on the desk. Do not hide behind gender when challenged on behavior. That's manipulation. Meghan's eyes burned. You're finished, she said. Kevin straightened. No, he replied. This interview is. He turned toward the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, this was supposed to be a conversation. Instead, we witnessed a public relations act collapsing under pressure. Meghan stepped toward him. You do not get the final word. Kevin's voice cut through the noise. This is my studio, my broadcast, and you no longer control the room. A producer rushed into view, whispering frantically. The director ordered a fade out. The audience shouted over each other. Meghan stared at Kevin in disbelief. You think you've won? She scoffed. Kevin's reply was quiet but lethal. But tonight, the audience did. Neither moved. Then Meghan grabbed her mug and dropped it on the floor, watching it shatter. The audience gasped. I'm done being interrogated by small men, she said. Enjoy your circus. She walked off, heels striking the floor sharply. Kevin didn't follow. Cameras widened. Music played over the confusion. Kevin stayed standing, breathing hard. He looked into the lens. Truth, he said, isn't something you act out. It's something that survives pressure. The screen faded to black. Kevin later commented only, I asked questions. The reaction answered the rest. Meghan's team released a statement calling the interview a planned trap. But the moment would never be forgotten. If this confrontation surprised you, it's only one example of what power looks like when challenged. Moments like this don't reveal who shouts the loudest. They reveal who remains standing when the spotlight becomes harsh. If you want more real confrontations, hidden power struggles, and stories that show what happens when cameras stop protecting people, hit like to support the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And tell us in the comments whose side were you on, because the next confrontation is already waiting behind the curtain.